More emotional testimony this week in the trial of Casey Anthony. Of course, she is charged with killing her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee, in 2008. And this week, her mother and her brother took the stand. So did they help her? Did this hurt? Well, let's bring in our legal guys, Avery Friedman, a civil rights attorney and law professor from Cleveland, and Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor who joins us from Las Vegas. Guys, this is the trial that it seems people cannot turn away from. And what really, I think, grabbed people this week was those jailhouse tapes, these tapes of Casey visiting with her family. We'd seen them before, but I think the reason maybe we see them in a different light now, or you're questioning, is because of what the defense alleges. The defense alleges that, yes, you're going to see Casey Anthony lie a lot, but they say the reason is because she was allegedly molested by her father. So what is your take on the effect that these tapes will have on the jury when the defense has already said, yes, we know our client's a liar? Richard, you can go first.
Hi, Rochelle. What happened this week was devastating to Baez's opening statement to the jury. We know she's a liar. The jury is not going to buy she's a liar because of all this incest and sexual abuse, which, by the way, they're not even going to be able to prove, because the only way they can prove that, Rochelle, is to put Casey Anthony on the stand. Now, can you imagine when she puts her hand on the Bible and swears to tell the truth? I mean, she is the most untrustworthy person in America. The jury is not going to believe one word out of her mouth. Therefore, she cannot testify in the case in chief. If the jury hates a defendant, Rochelle, and begins to hate the lawyer, they're going to convict, regardless of the burden of proof, which I don't believe the government is going to be able to sustain. Okay. But regardless of that, if the jury hates you, they're going to bring you down.
Okay, Richard, we'll get to the burden of proof in just a moment. First, let me let Avery weigh in on it. He's about to burst.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Look, the fact is that the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, Rochelle, is overwhelming. And the fact is that the lack of Casey Anthony's credibility is
Richard, wait a second.
Clearly a factor. I'm watching the same trial every day. And the fact is that despite whatever problem there is with the defense counsel, it is her behavior introduced methodically, carefully by the prosecution that's going to do this defendant in. And the very point that's been made that, well, you know, when she takes a stand, puts her hand on the Bible, let me tell you something, and a lot of people disagree with this, Rochelle, but they're going to have to put Casey Anthony on the stand for a variety of reasons, not the least of which the jury will see that there's clearly something wrong with her, and that's what the strategy is here.
Okay,
Rochelle,
go ahead.
Rochelle. They have to prove, in order to get the premeditated murder, that Casey was the one that put the duct tape on her face, on her mouth, and her nose. They have not proven that. They are not going to be able to prove that. They do not have a cause of death in this case, and therefore they should not put her on the stand in the case in chief, because the jury is just going to hate her worse, and she's going to get convicted and probably get sentenced to death. They have to save her for the mitigation phase.
Wow.
Avery, let me ask you something, though. Her mother, Cindy Anthony, also took the stand today. I think that this week, rather. I think that was some of the most emotional testimony that anybody has seen. And they brought her up so that they could play the 911 tapes, or even her mother, Cindy Anthony, calls to say, I haven't seen my granddaughter in 31 days. The car smells like a dead body. She broke down on the stand. What do you think this does for Casey's case?
Well, it clearly hurts her, because the jury is watching the dichotomy between a loving grandmother who literally falls apart on the stand, and then they look over to the defendant who barely has a tear in her eye. So it's a smart strategy, but it's a reality that I think the prosecutors expected to see from the grandmother. And again, it bolsters this idea that Casey Anthony is guilty of this murder. No doubt about it.
And Richard, I see you shaking your head. We got to move on, but I understand you're saying that you don't think that the prosecution is making their case so far. There's a long way to go, so we'll have to see. Let's turn now to the man known as the Butcher of Bosnia, Ratko Mladic. He's been in hiding for about 15 years. He has now been charged with war crimes, things like genocide, ethnic cleansing, that massacre at Srebrenica. What kind of defense will he have in The Hague? Richard, you can go first.
You know, Rochelle, I think he's going to have a stoic defense. He's proud of his military career. He's proud of the way he handled himself. So I think they're not going to be able to shut this guy up. I think he's proud of his accomplishments. I think he's going to say that's the course of treatment. That's the way I have to be as a leader. I had to take care of and protect my people. And this was just as a casualty of war, and I did nothing out of the ordinary. It's really, it's kind of absurd. And I don't know where this guy's going to go. Really.
Avery, go ahead.
Yeah, they have to put some kind of defense on. Be honest with you, it would be baffling to figure out what it is. They actually have a videotape, Rochelle, where he boasts about the revenge taken for the murder of Serbians, what they were back in the 18th century. He says it, they have video, and they have his personal diary. So we even saw that sort of mindless macho behavior in the courtroom where he ignored the judge yesterday and said, I'm not going to enter a plea. The judge is bringing him back in mid-July. If he refuses again, the judge will enter the not guilty plea.
Just some horrific, horrific things he's charged with. Richard and
Absolutely
Avery,
horrific. You're exactly right.
Richard and Avery, thank you so much for your take. You guys will be back in about 20 minutes to talk about the woman who left much of her estate to a doomsday prophet. Can her family get it all back?